Good afternoon, welcome to Tackle Talk Live. Myself and Ryan and Armando are going to give some tackle tips and answer your questions. And the topic today is our spring fishing trips. We have some 2.5 day limited load trips that are on the schedule on the weekends in May and June. There's several of them, and we have a couple 3-day trips, Memorial Day weekend, that's just new on the schedule here about a week ago. And we're going to be fishing offshore and focusing on bluefin tuna and hopefully some yellowtail on kelp patties. So we've got some lures to show you for yo-yo and for yellowtail. And got some rod and reel combos, a few accurates, and a 2-speed pen that we can show you that you're going to need for fishing these spring trips for bluefin tuna and yellowtail. In the past, with the exception of last year, April and May was phenomenal fishing for bluefin tuna. And, that bluefin tuna is still around. The American Angler was down there a couple weeks ago and saw 2 schools of that large bluefin tuna down there and landed 125 pounder. And boats that have been returning on long trips have seen that 50 to 80 pound fish, so it's around and it's within range for a 2.5 day trip and 3-day trip. So that stock of bluefin tuna is still around and available, and so we're hoping to capitalize that. We're starting those trips right at the end of April, so April 30th I believe is the first one, and every weekend until the end of June we're going to be scheduled doing that. And there's the possibility, if the fishing is really good, that we can add some more trips. So we're excited about starting our fishing season a little bit sooner. And so let's get started. Let's talk about everybody wants to know, does the boat have a kite reel? And this is one of our kite reels with, it's going to have a big seeker rail rod. It's a QSL 3x1. We have an example of that with a 2-speed on it, but just wanted to show that we have one of these accurate twin drags that would be a kite outfit that we would have on board for you to use. That hopefully we're going to be, flying kites and using flying fish for bait, and so everybody wants to know if we have the proper tackle for that. We have some Pan International 2-speeds and some Fathom 60s that we can use, and so we've got plenty of outfits that when you come on board you don't have to have your own kite outfit, because the boat can provide that for you. And we'll discuss how that works when you're on board one-on-one rather than going over it in general terms today. So that's a question that we get a lot, is are you providing kite outfits? And the answer is yes. So, but if you want to bring your own outfit, just make sure that you have the biggest rod and reel combo that you have with, this is 130 pound braid, and we have kite leaders for sale on board, or if you want your own one, then there's YouTube videos that you can check out to make your own, and of course we'll have flying fish aboard as well. And so 130 pound braid if you want a top shot. It's got to be 100 pound at minimum, and a big heavy rail rod. So if you want to bring your own kite outfit, then you can do that by all means. So, it's primarily, we're leaving on a Friday night, 6 p.m. departure, so that gives us plenty of room, plenty of time to get to the fishing grounds before daylight. And we're going to drive around and hopefully find a school before daylight, and we'll start drifting and using flat falls. So Armando, you want to talk about the flat fall lure that we have and the knife jig that we have from Shimano, and explain what that is all about.
So this is a pretty basic flat fall jig here, glow in the dark, 300 gram, real heavy, so it gets down very quickly. It's important to have a variety of flat falls, especially when you're fishing those things in the dark. Just based on currents and the drift and wind and how fast the boat's moving. If we're moving real fast, you want something real heavy like this, 300 gram. Pretty sure this looks like 200-pound leader. The landing actually has them pre-rigged, or we can rig them for you on the boat. Real simple to fish these flat falls. Art or Mike will give you an idea of how deep the fish are, and you want to drop down quickly into that depth. Usually, if you think you're deep enough, go deeper. A lot of times you'll actually see on the meter the jigs themselves, see them on the up and down, and you'll see the jig not getting deep enough and going through those columns of fish. And once you get down to that depth, all you want to do is wind halfway up and drop back down. If we're drifting real fast and you see your line getting real far away from the boat, you want to start over, wind all the way up and start over. But it's really important with these flat falls to just let them drop, do their thing, and then wind up quickly on the retrieve and just repeat. A lot of people get down to a depth that they think that they're in the right spot, and they just start jigging the flat fall up and down, and that's really not how you want to fish these flat falls. So that's the most successful way, and it's real fun fishing, especially when you're in really deep water, because it'll just stop. It'll almost feel like you hit the bottom, and that's how you know you've gotten a bit on the flat fall. So once that flat fall just stops, click it in gear and wind as fast as you can to get it tight on that fish, and then your fight's on from there.
Should I change the hooks that come on the flat fall?
It really does depend. Like this particular flat fall, it came from Fisherman's Landing here. It's rigged up and it's got the proper hooks. Some of the hooks that the flat falls come with are a little too small, or if they're non-Shimano ones, sometimes you do need to check those hooks and make sure that you do have a proper hook on them. So a lot of times, yeah, we are changing the hooks.
So that's one method, and then if we're driving around and we're seeing schools up on top, then there's a couple different methods. You can fish depending upon the grade of the fish, and we'll know that because we'll see them up on the surface, and we'll also see them on our fathom meter and depth sounder and sonar, so we'll be able to get an idea on what grade of fish that we're looking at. And so then you want to have a couple options for that. You want to be able to fly line 50 or 60 pound, 40 pound minimum. We don't recommend going out with 40 pound if they're 200 pounders, because you're going to get a bite, but you're probably not going to land the fish. So 50 or 60 pound with Fluorocarbon Leader, and generally we tell everybody to match the size fluorocarbon with your top shot, but you could try an 80 pound fluorocarbon leader with a circle hook, and depending upon the size of the bait would dictate what size hook to have. And so we'll have that information for you prior to being on the boat. And then we're seeing fish up on top. Ryan, you want to talk about cold sniper and the method for that? Casting into schools of bluefin.
We have a rigged one here with fluorocarbon on it already, and one that's not rigged. Both of them are 120 gram. These ones might be a little on the bigger side to throw into feeding schools of tuna. They will work though. There's 60 and 80 gram, and I think maybe 110 gram too. For the most part, you know, I would think if you're going to be casting these in, you probably want to be around the 50 to 60 pound mono on your rod, and I would use probably a longer rod in the 8.5, 9 foot range, and you just go up onto the bow when you're pulling up into these fish, and you're going to end up throwing this in there and trying to get into the middle of what they're feeding on, and you'll start kind of a quick retrieve on it and see if you can entice them to snag one of these on their way back in. So they come in a lot of different colors. You know, I would recommend probably having a little bit of fluorocarbon on there too, because they might grab it up towards where your knot's tied, just not in the back where the hook's at. So definitely have a little, probably 3 foot piece of fluorocarbon leader on there. Like Art said, matching your fluorocarbon to the mono that you're fishing with. You may, sometimes they change the treble hooks out on these. Sometimes they don't. This one looks like, this rigged one right here looks like it has a little bit of an upgraded treble hook on it. And this one that's not rigged looks like it might be a little bit thinner gauge treble hook. We usually recommend that you guys upgrade the hook a little bit if you're fishing around larger fish.
And do those things, they work on the sink too, right?
You can also, yeah, like if people are fishing flat falls and stuff too, you know, there's a lot of times that people are just dropping those straight down, and sure they get bit on the sink as well.
We were getting bit a lot of those cold snipers on that bluefin last year. One of the problems we were having is not changing the factory hook. It was a little too thin, so we definitely want to look into that.
They can be skipped across the surface, or you can, you know, once you cast in, give it 5-second sink time or something like that, and start your retrieve after that. Both ways are pretty effective.
What about this? Is the factory split ring that hook is attached to the lure with? Is that okay? You can get away with that, the factory split ring and a larger hook, or do you need to change the whole thing? Put a larger split ring on that's heavier gauge and a heavier gauge hook, or can you just put the hook on?
I think you're okay with this split ring right here. I mean, sure, you can. This one has an upgraded split ring on it as well. A lot of the times the people take the treble hook off of this and put a big, kind of like a big J hook on the back of it with a longer shank on it. You know, so when they do bite it, it pierces through, and you know, they get hooked. It has a longer, bigger barb coming off of it. These ones are kind of smaller right there. So you can upgrade the split ring as well, but most of the time we just swap out the hooks for people. Unless we think it looks too small, then we'll change out the split rings as well. We have them on the boat for you guys if you don't have any.
So are we just to clarify that, if we're swapping a hook out on a cold sniper, are we putting a treble hook back on, or are we putting a single hook? Or is there a difference?
Most of the time, I mean, we're putting single hooks back on it.
Single hooks.
The barb has a longer shank, and it just seems to be a little more effective.
Okay, well, that's a great tip. I wasn't aware of that. I just thought that we were changing the treble hook out. So that's really, really good info. So change your treble hook out to a single hook. It's a great tip. So the other thing is fly lining sardines with 50 or 60 pound test and the proper size fluorocarbon and circle hook. And you know, you want a 7 to 8 foot rod so that you can cast your bait out away from the boat. And you can use that same outfit for fly lining a sardine. If we're out in the zone and it's slow and there's a kelp patty that's close by, then we're going to be stopping and trying a kelp patty for yellowtail. And so I have a couple of options with that. This is a couple of lures that you definitely want to have with you. This is a Salis regular 6X. You could have 6X juniors, and of course the universal color for fishing for yellowtail for decades now has been blue and white, and the second, you know, plan B would be this scrambled egg. And it's these are two effective lures to have, and you know, whenever you're offshore and there's kelp patties around, then this would be one of the primary methods that we would recommend. So 40 to 60 pound test, and you can have a small 2-speed reel with 80 pound braid on it, and you're going to cast out and let it sink. And there have been times in the past when the guys that are fly lining baits with 25 to 40 pound tests are getting yellowtail, but maybe the ones that are on the surface are a little bit smaller, where sometimes the better sized fish is a little bit deeper, so you want to have the right yo-yo lure in your arsenal. So 6X regular or junior and blue and white or scrambled egg is something that you want to have in your tackle box just in case there's that option. And we have one other, if they're up boiling around on the surface, then there's this this color has been really, really popular and really, really effective, this mint color. And this is a Tatty 4.0 surface lure, so 30 or 40 pound test on the surface and retrieve this thing slow. Tatty 45 in the same color or sardine color would be something that you would want to have. And then you want to have, you know, your 25 to 40 pound outfit with fluorocarbon on it, and you know, a 2.0 J hook, so that you can fly line a live sardine out there when we're drifting on kelp patties. Going back to the bluefin tuna fishing, we have this Seeker rail rod with a 10 fathom 2-speed reel 60, and so this would be the rod and reel combo that your flat fall could go on, or that knife lure. And so this is the OSP 1x3 rated for 60 to 100 pound test, and it has this extended hypalon on the above the reel, so that you know that portion of the rod can rest on the rail and be beneficial for fighting those bigger bluefin. And so this has got 100 pound Spectra on it, and it's got 80 pound or 100 pound top shot on it. So there's two options with that. I like fishing with 100 feet of monofilament, because there's a little bit of stretch and a little bit of give. But you could tie that flat fall lure directly to the end of your Spectra and not have a top shot. Just know that with Spectra, there's no stretch, And so you're gonna feel every tail beat of that fish, and can be a little bit more punishing than if you have a 80 to 100 pound top shot, and it just has to be 100 feet. So this is your prime flat fall outfit with a 2-speed reel. Make sure it's a 2-speed reel, and 80 to 100 pound or 100 pound Spectra, and a rail rod. And then this is a 7-foot rod, and here's another accurate. This is a Valiant 600 2-speed, and this has got 80 pound Spectra on it, or Braid on it. And this could be the outfit that you use with your Colt Sniper, or you could use it for fly lining a live sardine with a 60 pound top shot on there. And so this would be an outfit that you'd want to have. So it's a 7-foot rod, and it could also, multiple tasks. You could use this for your yo-yo lure on a kelp patty. If you don't have multiple outfits, then you can interchange the method very easily just by retying a lure on there. So this would be an effective outfit to have. And these accurate Valiant 600s are great reels for casting, and the 2-speed mechanism in them, and the drag system is awesome. So this would be something that we would recommend. And then we have a 6-foot rod. This has got a roller tip and a roller guide on it, and this has got an accurate Boss 600 on it. And this could also be one of the a good outfit for flat fall and Colt Sniper. And the drag system in these Bosses is very, very good, and the 2-speed mechanism works really, really well. So here's some examples of accurates that we have on board, and we have them as loaner tackle too. So if there's maybe you don't have a certain outfit, or you're just starting out with a 2.5-day trip, and it might be your first multi-day trip, you could ask if we have loaner gear, and you can try out these rods and reels on the boat, and maybe that'll help you make a decision as far as purchasing an outfit. And then we have one other seeker. This is an 8-foot rod for 20 to 50 pound test, and this would have a reel on it for live bait fishing for fly line, and a 25 or 30 pound test for a yellowtail on the surface. So those would be the 4 outfits that you'd want to have. And so that would be kind of a minimum that you'd want to bring on a 2.5-day trip. We got a question?
Yeah, we have a couple of anglers going on a 3-day in July. So is that the same setup for a 3-day in the early summer?
Armando?
Yeah, I would definitely say pretty much everything that Art just covered there. That's what you want to have. You want to have something for your flat falls. Perfect example, a rail rod with 80 pound test, 2-speed, something for 50 and 60 pound for a sinker rig, or for your yo-yo irons, and maybe 2 different setups at least for your live bait, because you want to have a 25 or a 30 pound setup with a 2-speed reel, 8-foot rod, and then something for 40, 50, or 60 pounds to fly line sardine, especially if we start running into that bigger bluefin.
So, we thought that, everybody wants to know, connections, and so we thought we'd get the shoelaces out here, and, it makes it easy to see, how to do some of these connections that we're talking about. So, we're gonna let Ryan do a fluorocarbon to monofilament surgeon's knot. We can start with that. And the shoestrings multicolored help a lot with that.
Okay, so quick connection knot for your fluorocarbon and your mono would just be a surgeon's knot. And I like to give myself plenty of tag end to work with when I'm doing this. So you're just going to kind of overlap. We'll say the white one is your mono and the blue one's going to be your fluorocarbon leader. And like I said, just overlap them, give yourself plenty of stuff to work with, and you're just going to make a circle and pinch your circle like that. And then you're going to have the tag end of your mono, and you're going to have your fluorocarbon leader, and it's going to go through this circle, both of them, 3 times. And you can just kind of work it around and pinch it. And once you get through 3 times right there, you're going to want to grab both tag ends and both of the main lines, and you're just going to start to cinch it down, pull all of it. These shoestrings are kind of big, so you work it down with your fingers a little bit. You also want to get it a little bit wet too while you're cinching this down, so it kind of slides together and you're not creating any friction and weakening any of the line that you're working with. Once you got it all the way down, you can let go of your tag ends, just kind of pull it tight, and then you're going to trim these off. I leave, about 1/4 of an inch of your tag ends on each side, and it's just so, just in case you didn't get it to cinch all the way down and you get bit and it comes tight, if it didn't cinch all the way down and your tag ends are too short, it doesn't end up going through the knot and slipping. So, real quick, that was the surgeon's knot right there.
Another question that we get all the time, Ryan, is how long should your fluorocarbon leader be?
For me, when you have a knot like this that's kind of bulky, you don't really want it to go through your guide, your top guide, because when you go to cast it, you're going to have your tag ends and stuff like this, and you're going to try to be casting this knot through your top guide, which is usually smaller than the rest of your guide. So I usually say about 3 feet, 2.5 to 3 feet is a good, nice length right there. If you have a longer rod, you can maybe make it a little bit longer, just so if you have to, you get bit and you need to tie a new hook on or something like that, your line gets a little chafed down at the bottom, then you have a leader that you can retie a hook on, or you can change one of your lures or something like that without having to, put a new fluorocarbon leader on right away. So 2.5 to 3.5 feet is good, depending on the size of your rod.
Okay, so another knot, Armando. I'll hold the lure. Hopefully we can do this. Will you show a San Diego jam knot there?
Okay, so the San Diego jam knot, and this is a knot you're going to use tying your hooks on or your jigs. Just going to go through the eye there, come back. You're going to use your finger to leave a loop right here and leave yourself plenty of line. So you have that loop, and then you're going to go around both lines there. I like to go 6 or 7 times. And as you do this, it's really important that you're actually keeping the line cinched up. Like, kind of keep pulling it all the way back up. That way it stays real tight and uniform. We're just going to do 3, just because we're using the shoelace here. And then you're going to come back through this loop here, and then through the loop that you made with your fingers. And once again, you want to keep it nice and tight so that when you cinch it down, those loops look real uniform.
Yeah, you don't want them crossed up,
Yeah.
right?
You want it to look real perfect, just like that. And, and then what we have is we'll have rings, or you might have them on your tackle box to keep tension on your hook there, and then you just pull it real tight. Leave yourself, just like Ryan was saying, a little bit of a tag end there. That way if it cinches down a little bit more, if you didn't get it tight enough and you get bit, then it can cinch down a little bit more and it won't slip through.
Sure.
So that's a knot that you're going to use for just about every application. You can use that for lures, your yo-yo lure, your surface lure, your Colt Sniper, the flat fall lure. You can use that same knot, and even larger hooks. The San Diego jam knot it's probably the strongest knot out there. It's really, really simple to tie, and it's something that we recommend that you use for your connections. And if you're hanging out watching TV or whatever, take some time and practice both of those knots, because then you become more proficient at it, so that when you're the fish are biting and your adrenaline's flowing, and you want to make sure that you tie the right knot. And so if you practice a little before you get on the boat, then you become more proficient at tying the thing, so you can practically do it in your sleep. And then you have confidence, and you're assured that you got the right knot, the right connection, because there's nothing worse than losing the fish of a lifetime, and you bring the end of your line up there and there's a curlicue on the end because you didn't tie your knot right. Go ahead.
How often should you change out your mono top shot and fluoro leader, as well as change hooks?
Ryan?
You want to change your mono. I mean, I would put new mono on every time you go fishing. If you put new top shot on at the beginning of the trip and you're on a multiple day trip, and you have a good day of fishing to where that mono's been, you caught some good fish and the mono's got fished hard, then, we stock all sizes of line on the boat, so it's a good idea at the end of the day. You can ask, we usually make an announcement and we'll collect rods from you guys, and one of us will do top shots throughout the night and, put fresh line on there for tomorrow, the next day when we're fishing. It's $5 for a top shot, and it's, that's a small price to pay to always have fresh line on your setup every day, so then you're ready to go in the morning. The stuff stretches out pretty good. Fluorocarbon will last a little bit longer, but if I'm changing my top shot, I'm changing my fluorocarbon with it. And you want to change your fluorocarbon too. If you only have a 3-foot piece on it and it starts getting shorter and shorter, you want to, don't be afraid to change it out. I know it's a little bit more than the mono, but still, you want to, change all that stuff out pretty regular. Your hooks, changing out your hooks is, that's just kind of one of those things. It's a visual thing. After, maybe you caught a few fish on it, does it look like it's still holding up good? Is it starting to straighten out? Is the barb starting to go away on it from pliers grabbing at it? So, if your rusty hooks work too, but the hook is just kind of a visual thing. Maybe there's teeth marks down at the bottom of your fluorocarbon or your mono, but your hook's still good. You just want to cut a few inches off of off of the line down there, and you're good to go on tying your hook back on. So hopefully that helps you guys out. But definitely, if you're gonna, with the mono, you want to start out fresh if it's been sitting in your house since last season or anything like that. And even the people that are coming out doing maybe 3 trips a year with us, 3-4 trips a year, it's still, it's been sitting, so you just want to change it out. If it's sitting in hot conditions, it can dry out. I don't know where it's being stored at or anything like that, but it's, like I said, it's a small price to pay to change it out and have fresh line on every time of year.
It's cheap insurance.
Exactly.
You ready for Logan's questions?
Let it rip. Let it rip.
Is it beneficial to have a spliced on leader for jigs and lures?
Splice on leader for fluorocarbon for lures. Sometimes I think that the flat fall lure is probably just heavy mono. It's not heavy fluorocarbon. Maybe the smaller lures like the Colt Sniper, it might be advantageous to have fluorocarbon leader on there. The yo-yo lures, there's no leader necessary. You just tie it onto the end of your top shot. And the same with the surface iron. You don't need any sort of leader. You're just tying the surface lure directly on the end of your mono. So leaders are effective for Colt Snipers, and it should be a fluorocarbon leader. And if you want to invest in fluorocarbon leaders for your flat fall or your knife jig, whichever one you're using there, it certainly applies, but it's not necessary. I know that we're using just heavier mono. It's not a line class thing or a visual thing. A lot of times those flat fall lures we're fishing at night, so it's definitely not a line class or a visual thing.
Do you guys ever fish straight braid to your iron or flat falls?
I personally do not. I always want a little bit of stretch. I know that sometimes, like I was saying earlier, people will tie their flat falls with that leader already connected there straight to their Spectra, which is fine, but like we were talking about earlier, there's not a lot of stretch, virtually no stretch in Spectra, so you're going to feel every little bit of that fish. So I would always put a top shot of mono on, or if you were going to tie it directly to your Spectra, make sure you have a leader on your jig.
So here's a question about a new product. Are you familiar with the Monofluoro Hybrid? She thinks it's made by AFCO. Just wondering if you have any thoughts about it.
I haven't seen it yet.
Haven't seen it yet.
Okay, I'll get back.
There's new stuff out on the market all the time, so it's wouldn't be surprising. And AFCO has been around for decades now, and they are they're really good at what they do. And every product that I've seen from AFCO, we're usually using stuff in the clothing line of things, and AFCO is one of our sponsors, and we primarily, all the crews got AFCO shorts and shirts and sun shirts and jackets and that sort of thing, and they have a wonderful product. So if AFCO came up with it, it certainly would be worth checking out, but I have not seen it or heard of it yet.
So just another bit of advice on the retying your hook. Somebody's suggesting that you should retie your hook if you feel any nick in your mono or in your fluorocarbon too. So as captains, what signs of fish are you looking for when you're out there scanning? How do you find fish?
Most of the time, two primary ways. If the fish is up on the surface and you see fish jumping on bait balls and that sort of thing, and so there can be birds associated with that, so we're looking for birds, and we're looking for fish boiling on the surface, so that's a very obvious way to find them. And then there's also on the surface, there's a school of fish that's very, very close to the surface that we call a breezer. So it looks like raindrops on the water. So it's not, the fish isn't up chasing bait and boiling around. It's just very close to the surface. And so basically what it is, it's the wake of the school of fish behind the school of fish that the fish is making, and so we're looking for that sort of thing. And then Armando, what about below the surface?
Well, below the surface, obviously we're using the technology on the boat, the side scanning sonar, or the up and down. So we're sweeping them out, and that's all machinery fish that we look for. But we all, you might not see fish sometimes like on a single turnbird that you're seeing out there, but you're getting close to watching one or two turnbirds just picking at the water, just kind of diving down and looking. And so we use that as a visual sign to find fish that are just beneath the surface. You might not see them crashing or breezing or anything like that, but it's an indication that you can go up to something like that and start sweeping them out with your sonar, and that's one way we'll find them below the surface.
The other thing is temperature edges. We have the technology to download sea surface temperature maps, and so we have an idea where there's a temperature break, and so that's something that technology-wise that we're using, prior to the trip leaving, or while we're out on a trip, we're getting a new map, and that's, kind of dependent upon conditions. But that's another key that we use to help us, and a lot of time tuna are associated with those temperature breaks or changes, and so that would be something that we would look for. And we're when we're traveling at night, the guys are very observant. We have technology with our plotting program that we can see a change in the water temperature, but we're also just visually looking at the water temperature gauge on a regular basis and making notes at night when we're traveling if there's a temperature break, and sometimes that can be very helpful, finding a temperature break that maybe wasn't on the sea surface map or something, or if it's cloudy and so there isn't a way to get a decent map, then that's something that we key on as changes in water temperature.
Can you review what a flat spot is?
So a flat spot or a breezer is a school of fish that's very close to the surface, and as they're swimming along, the wake of the school of fish is causing a ripple on the water that's different than a whitecap, or it's if it's glassy calm, then it stands out as it looks like there's a wake over there, and it's actually the wake of the school of fish. So that is a breezer or a flat spot.
So could you introduce the other two captains, AM, and maybe you guys could share your favorite fish personally to catch, and do you have a favorite fish to get the passengers to catch?
So Armando Marquez had his captain's license for multiple years now. He worked out of H&M Landing and ran a producer for several years for the Brenna family, and he came to us 3 years ago and has his captain's license and is a great fisherman and has a great set of eyes. And so Armando could be running one of your trips that you're coming out with this year. And then Ryan Lindon just got his captain's credential last year and is learning the ropes on spotting fish and with the sonar and operating the boat. And Ryan also has a tremendous set of eyes, and we depend on him at times to find kelp patties and schools of fish on the surface. And so Ryan's been with us now this is going to be his 6th season, and both these guys are a huge asset to the Searcher family and the operation of the boat and customer care, and we're lucky to have them. My favorite kind of fish to catch and maybe to eat is yellowtail on a surface lure. So it's a visual thing for me, standing up on the bow. You see maybe 2 or 3 or 4 fish boiling on the surface, and so you cast that surface lure out there and wind it in slow, and there's nothing better than watching your surface lure in the water and it's swimming and a yellowtail comes up behind it and bites it, and you can watch it actually bite the lure, and that's my favorite type of fish to catch and favorite method. And yellowtail are strong fish. They're in the jack family, so it's a good fight. And after you land them, they're great tasting and great eating, and so that's my favorite.
What about favorite for passengers to catch while they're on your boat or something?
Well, there's nothing like yellowtail, no matter what method, whether it's on surface lure, whether it's on a yo-yo lure, whether it's on a dropper loop with 80-pound test and you're going to the bottom with a 16-ounce sinker and a live bait, and then fly lining them. They're really, really fun fish to catch, yellowtail.
Mondo?
I definitely love catching yellowtail as well, but one of my other favorites to catch would be calico bass. And they're just so much fun to fight and fish for. We're so lucky that some of the areas on our longer trips, we can go and do like some really fun calico bass fishing, catch and release stuff. It's just a lot of fun. I really enjoy fishing those things. They're very exciting. To eat, I would have to say wahoo. It's so delicious.
Ryan?
As for passengers catching fish on the boat, I like just all aspects. I like it when people catch something that they haven't caught before, or maybe they just got, their 200-pound bluefin that they wanted, or they caught the biggest yellowtail that they've ever had, or a dorado that they've never caught. I like seeing the passengers, reactions after they catch something that's maybe bigger than they haven't caught, or, a new species to them. As far as fish that I like to catch, I'm kind of with them. The yellowtail on a surface iron is pretty awesome to watch, and they're strong fish, so they're always a fun fight. And I enjoy fishing calico bass too as well. So both are a lot of fun, different kind of fight. I'm gonna probably go with yellowtail too. Is one of my favorites to eat. Yellowtail and wahoo. I like the lighter meat fish, and I prefer that, but fresh fish from the ocean is fresh fish, so it's usually all good.
So I have another Logan question, but he's blaming it on his dad. So I guess it's distance the Searcher can go on fuel capacity. How many miles could you go before you'd have to turn back? Let's just say it's a full tank. load of
Well, the boat
fuel?
carries 3,500 gallons of fuel. And so, I want to say it's 1,200 miles because we do those 12-day trips in the spring for natural history, and it's about a 1,200-mile trip from San Diego down around the tip of Baja, and then up in the southern Sea of Cortez and back to Cabo San Lucas to offload passengers, and then we have to get fuel in order to come back. So it's about 1,200 miles. We do 7 and 8 day trips in the fall, and we're fishing the ridge, and that's a 1,000-mile trip there and back. So 1,200 is probably the max.
Okay, maybe last question.
Okay.
And it's about colored line, the colored depth line. Is it a good idea for fishing the flat fall jig?
Yeah, I don't personally use it, but I definitely see the advantages of it because anything you can do to increase your chances of hooking one of those things, it's better, especially when you hear, oh, they're at 180 feet, and if it gives you the ability to have an idea of where that is. But just realize that if you are, you're not dropping straight to 180 feet because the boat's drifting, so your jig's carrying it out their way, so you're not actually, when you get to your counting of 180 feet, that's not where you're at depth-wise, so you just gotta keep that in mind. But I definitely see the advantage of it, yeah.
You don't have to have the colored line either for it. I mean, you can do it with just your white spectra. You can measure that stuff out at your house and mark it with a Sharpie. So, when you see your Sharpie marks coming through, you have a rough estimate of how much line is out. You can do it by 100 feet, 200 feet, 50 feet.
Do it out in your driveway or go down the block with your fishing line.
Yeah, tie it to the dog and
Throw the ball for it.
Yeah. Good thinking. You gotta be careful now. You might get a backlash with your dog running on the end of it. Anyway, so that's Tackle Talk Live for spring fishing, 2.5 day trips. Searchersportfishing.com. You can book online, and or you can call the office and talk to Celia, 619-226-2403, and she can take your reservation. We have payment plans available, and of course there is. We've done several Tackle Tip Thursdays, and we've done several Tackle Talk Lives, and they're available on our YouTube channel, Searcher Sport Fishing, and so you can check out, connections that are a little bit closer to and easier to look at, and of course you can rewind them and do all that sort of stuff that you need to do. But those reference points on our YouTube channel for all of our Tackle Tip Thursdays and Tackle Talk Lives are available so that you can check those out. And one thing we want to mention, I'm a lifetime member of CCA, and they have a meeting at 5 o'clock following this Tackle Talk Live on Instagram. And they always have informative information and a good guest and the latest of what CCA is doing to help us all out as anglers in California. So I want to thank everybody for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you this season. We're starting fishing sooner, and stay tuned. We may have some earlier trips that you might be interested in.
April?
April.